What does the PDB, the President's Daily Brief, look like? How long is it? What does it contain?
So first of all, it looks like the most expensive book report you can ever imagine. It's got its own binder. It's all very high end. It feels important. It looks important. It's not like a cheap Trapper Keeper. It's somewhere between, I would give it probably between 50 and 125 pages a day. It's produced every day around 2 o'clock in the morning by a dedicated group of analysts. And each page is essentially a short paragraph to a few paragraphs about a priority happening that affects national security from around the world. The president rarely gets to the entire briefing in a day. He relies on a briefer instead to prioritize what inside the briefing needs to be shared with the president. Because some days the PDB will get briefed in 10 minutes, and some days it'll be briefed over the course of 2 hours. It depends on the president's schedule.
How much competition is there for the first page? And how much jockeying there is for attention? I imagine for all the different intelligence agencies and within the CIA, there's probably different groups that are modular and they all care about different nations or different cases. And do you understand how much competition there is for the attention, for the limited attention of the president?
You're 100% correct in how the agency and how officers and managers at the agency handle the PDB. There's a ton of competition. Everybody wants to be the first on the radar. Everybody wants to be on the first page. The thing that we're not baking into the equation is the president's interests. The president dictates what's on the first page of his PDB, and he will tell them usually the day before, I want to see this on the first page tomorrow. Bring this to me in the beginning. I don't want to hear about what's happening in Mozambique. I don't really care about what's happening in Saudi Arabia. I want to see 1, 2, 3. And regardless of whether or not those are the three biggest things in the world, the president's the executive. He's the one. He's the ultimate customer. So we do what the customer says. That has backfired in the past. If you haven't already started seeing how that could go wrong, that has backfired in the past. But that is essentially what happens when you serve in the executive branch. You serve the executive.
So what's the role of the director of the CIA versus the president? What's that dance like? So the president really leads the focus of the CIA?
The president is the commander-in-chief for the military, but the executive, the president is also the executive for the entirety of the intelligence community. So he's the ultimate customer. If you look at it like a business, the customer, the person spending the money, is the president, and the director is the CEO. So if the director doesn't create what the president wants, there's going to be a new director. That's why the director of CIA is a presidential appointed position. Sometimes they're extremely qualified intelligence professionals. Sometimes they're just professional politicians or soldiers that get put into that seat because the president trusts them to do what he wants them to do. Another gaping area that causes problems, but that's still the way it is.
So you think this is a problematic configuration of the whole system?
Massive flaw in the system. It is a massive flaw in the system because if you're essentially appointing a director to do what you want them to do, then you're assigning a crony. And that's what we define corruption as within the United States. And inside the United States, we say, if you pick somebody outside of merit for any other reason other than merit, then it's cronyism or it's nepotism. Here, that's exactly what our structure is built on. All presidential appointees are appointed on something other than merit.
So for an intelligence agency to be effective, it has to discover the truth and communicate that truth. And maybe if you're appointing the director of that agency, they're less likely to communicate the truth to you unless the truth aligns perfectly with your desired worldview.
Well, not necessarily perfectly, because there are other steps, right? They have to go in front of Congress, and they have to have the support of multiple legislators. But the challenge is that the short list of people who even get the opportunity aren't a meritorious list. It's a short list based off of who the president is picking or who the would-be president is picking. Now, I think we've proven that an intelligence organization can be extremely effective even within the flawed system.
Yeah.
The challenge is, how much more effective could we be if we improved? And I think that's the challenge that faces a lot of the U.S. government. I think that's a challenge that has resulted in what we see today when it comes to the decline of American power and American influence, the rise of foreign influence, authoritarian powers. and a shrinking U.S. economy, a growing Chinese economy. And it's just, we have questions, hard questions we need to ask ourselves about how we're going to handle the future.
What aspect of that communication between the president and the CIA could be fixed to help fix the problems that you're referring to in terms of the decline of American power?
So when you talk about the president wanting to prioritize what the president cares about, that immediately shows a break between what actually matters to the long-term success of the United States versus what benefits the short-term success of the current president.
Because any president is just a human being and has a very narrow focus. And narrow focus is not a long-term calculation.
Exactly. What's the maximum amount of years a president can be president? 8.
Yeah.
He has to be, he or she.
In the United States.
In the United States, according to our current Constitution.
Yeah.
But they're very limited in terms of what they have to prioritize. And then if you look at a 4-year cycle, 2 years of that is essentially preparing for the next election cycle. So that's only 2 years of really quality attention you get from the president, who's the chief executive of all the intelligence community. So the most important thing to them is not always the most important thing to the long-term survival of the United States.